Sean, what are we about to see here?
This is me just sketching ahead. So, I mean, what I do, I mean, everyone kind of starts out in comics like drawing the upside down egg, which is the head. And then when you draw that line down the middle, of the vertical line down the middle, it shows which way the head is facing, left or right. And then usually there's a horizontal line that shows you where the eye is, looking up or down. So you got that crosshairs on the upside down egg. The very first feature that I draw is the nose because that kind of centers everything and everything's kind of built around it. So in this drawing, you're going to see me doing a lot of construction lines, not just the final lines that show up. Like if you're a really good artist, you can just go in with ink and draw the final lines that appear on the finished work. But for me, for most of us, we kind of draw like a kind of like a like a 3D wire model of it, and then we can kind of scrutinize that before we move to the next stage and kind of build up the details step by step. So like you can see where I put the eyes next because I think that's the next most important thing. And then I'm placing the mouth. So here you can see me, I'm tackling the T-zone of the face, which is the eyes, nose, mouth. The most important thing on the face, eyes, nose, mouth. Like we can just throw out the ears because they just don't matter. So right now what I'm doing is just trying to divide that egg into its parts. Like our heads have a temporal lobe and a frontal lobe. And that kind of shows you where the front of the face is and then the side of the face is. So right now it's focused entirely on structure. And it's very light, but I'll start pressing down harder later on. So this is your typical white dude male. Um, and
I think this looks remarkably like me.
yeah, well, you're a white dude male, right? And then I haven't drawn the hair yet. So, but yeah, this is a good point though. Like whenever you're an artist, when you're with people, it's great to study their faces, not just from photographs, but when they're sitting in front of you. Like when Buddy is in front of me at a cafe in Morocco, like he's telling us the important things we got to know for being on stage in an hour. But I'm just looking at his beautiful face, and then just observing the structure there. So right now,
and when he did my face, it was just a full circle, Mike.
There was the whole page.
There was no definition. It was just a blob, no cheekbone, nothing.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, when you draw the structure of the face, it becomes very angular, and then like there's a lot of lines there that show where all the major features are and what shape they are blocked in perspective. But then half those lines, or maybe even most of those lines, don't appear in the end. They all get erased. So the important thing to know there is that as an artist, you have to see the structure, and then you have to know where those lines are, even if you don't draw them, or at least draw them and erase them. And then especially if you're drawing like a female face, those structure lines shouldn't be there at all, but the effects of them are there. So that helps place the eye and helps place all the features. I think one thing we should I'll talk about later is that it's not just drawing a beautiful eye, beautiful nose, and beautiful mouth. It's really those are the nameable parts that we know from just because we can name them, you can touch them. But it's really a lot of it's really important is the space between and the shapes in between, like the distance between the eyes and the length of the nose, and then also the distance from the nose to the mouth and the distance from the mouth to the chin. All those things are vitally important, but since we don't have a name for them, we tend not to look at them. So as an artist, you got to throw out your preconceived notions and start seeing things from an artist's point of view. And so I'm going in with ink now. So this will help kind of show which lines I'm selecting to keep and which lines are going away. So you can see like the nose has like a little flat part and it's made out of 3 planes. I'm only picking one of the sides to draw, and then the other side, because we're not chiseled out of wood, will just disappear. So one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do is in a 3/4 view of a face is to place the eyes in relationship to the nose. And so that's there's a trick that I kind of taught myself to help do that. Otherwise, when you're done, it could look like the eyes are kind of shifted off to one side or the nose is, flat against the face. So yeah, we'll talk about this method that I kind of came up with and things to keep in mind. So
Mike, this is the longest we've ever been quiet on our own show.
Yeah, this is great though.
This
Now,
is
do you
great.
do this with every face that you draw? You go through this entire process?
surprisingly, I do. I think that's me specifically because I'm a very meticulous artist, and also it doesn't really come naturally to me. So every time I draw a face, because it's vitally important, and it gets even harder when you try to portray like difficult angles or even emotions, that it really can tire you out. And I'm kind of constructing it like you would build a house. Like you don't draw the windows and the bricks first. You kind of start with the blueprint. And I think a lot of artists can kind of skip that phase because they're kind of into all of it. And then especially if you have a cartoony style and you're drawing like American Dad type stuff, then you don't really need that structure and stuff. But for me, I still do it every time. So this is about the pace at which I draw a comic too. I have to figure it all out, and that's both good and bad in that for a lot of people, like wondering whether you'll ever be able to draw a comic if you don't have any natural ability. Well, I don't have any natural ability. I just kind of go through this every single time. So it takes me about twice or three times as long to draw a page as the average comic book artist.
Now, Sean, you have said that even though at one time in your life you did monthly books, you don't have that energy anymore to do this level of detail day in, day out on a monthly book. What sort of work are you attracted to these days as an artist?
A non-monthly book. So basically it's the same thing. I think the level of detail has gone up and the attention to like storytelling, everything I think has really gone up in terms of raising my game. But one thing that did not go up is how long it takes. So it takes longer, and I think it's because as you get better as an artist, your eye gets better and you realize how much BS you were getting by before with, and now you have an eye that can scrutinize things a lot more. So it tends to slow things down.
Sean, when you get a script, what do you do? What are your steps before you start to draw? What do you do?
Well, you give it a read, and then you can kind of see in your head, and intuitively you pick out the scenes. And you first of all, you identify the major scene, like the big money shot, and just know that the other panels are kind of satellites around it. Then you got to try to come up with, try to find a way to tell the story very clearly, but also make it interesting to look at. What I'm doing here is like I'm done with the inking part, but I'm kind of just going through and just showing the different planes of the face, kind of putting it back in there. None of the stuff you would really draw on a face, but it just helps you see, what I'm seeing in my head, because all you're seeing here are final lines, but these are the lines I see in my face, in my head. So they basically help lend structure to the face, so that when you place all the features there, and you can turn the head up, down, left, right, or seen from below, and still be able to keep everything looking like it's the same person, and also not having it fall apart.
And would this guide the colorist in terms of lighting design and coloring design?
It should. He never sees the stage, so a good colorist should be able to see this in the human face. Like, like I saw that little part on the forehead there. That's like a ball that comes forward and pushes out, and that affects the shadow of the forehead. And then that line coming down the side of his cheekbone, like that's like as if you had a box with a front and a side. That's where the front and the side meet. But of course, on a human head, it's rounded over. But it's important to kind of see that in your head, even though you don't draw it or draw it and erase it. So I think we're just about done with this.
So Sean, this is amazing. Now this is one of your own characters, I assume. I know that you had a comic book, and people can find that comic book. What is the comic book called?
The book is called Evermind, and it's from 24/7 Comics. But this character, though, is like I said, a generic white dude. It was Mike before the hair came on.
Yeah.
When I sit down to draw, this is what I think I can do, and then it just doesn't even come anywhere close to it.